107.9 and Kello.com.
Good morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Great to have you along. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
I've been listening to you for years, Greg. Thanks for all you do and keeping us informed.
You sound a little taller on radio. Dispensing a daily dose of common sense. No prescription required.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
Good morning, my friends. The marketplace of ideas is open. Top of the morning to you today, of course, St. Patrick's Day. It's Monday, March 17th. Great to have you along. So we had President Trump sending illegals to El Salvador yesterday. And El Salvador's president shared video of hundreds of these migrant criminals landing in Central America. And there are a lot of number of photos and some videos you can see. And the president responding to this, saying thank you to El Salvador, in particular their president, for your understanding of this horrible situation, which was allowed to happen to the United States because of incompetent Democrat leadership. The president said, followed that up by saying, we will not forget. In fact, I'll share a number of the president's posts on True Social this morning. So the Trump administration transferring hundreds of illegals to El Salvador, and a federal judge had barred this. And the flights actually were in the air, and this is just crazy. You had a district judge who issued an order Saturday night. So Saturday evening, blocking the deportations. But lawyers told him there were already two planes in the air. One was headed to El Salvador, the other for Honduras. And so the judge then verbally ordered the planes be turned around, but he did not include that directive in his written order. And you had the White House then responding to this after the fact, saying they were already out of United States airspace. So they were out of U.S. airspace, and it was a done deal. And then you had the president of Salvador saying, oopsie, too late. He had agreed to house about 300 illegals for a year at a cost of $6 million in El Salvador prisons. And he posted photos of them arriving and the way that they were treated as they were getting off the plane, as they were arriving at the prison. Then you got the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who said, we sent over 250 alien enemy members of Tren de Aragua, which El Salvador has agreed to hold in their very good jails at a fair price that will also save our taxpayer dollars. Hundreds of violent criminals were sent out of the country, Marco Rubio said. So this is the ACLU that was involved with this and approaching the judge on Saturday, and Saturday evening then issuing an order. And again, it was just too late. So they were taken into custody. Also, you had the Attorney General slamming this federal judge and the ACLU. She issued a statement condemning the district judge, James Boasberg, saying he had supported Tren de Aragua terrorists over the safety of Americans. And she said, TDA, Tren de Aragua, TDA is represented by the ACLU. Sorter disregards well-established authority regarding President Trump's power and it puts the public and law enforcement at risk. The Department of Justice is undeterred in its efforts to work with the White House, the Department of Homeland Security, and all of our partners to stop this invasion and make America safe again. So again, the judge's order, the Trump administration saying it came too late. The president invoked the Alien Enemies Act on Saturday. And I told you last week it was likely he was going to do this. There were a lot of reports out there that the president was going to do that. He's been very vocal about it. His State of the Union address, he talked about using the Alien Enemies Act. Well, he did so on Saturday. It's the campaign promise the president had made. And he, in his proclamation, he said, I proclaim that all Venezuelan citizens 14 years of age or older who are members of TDA are within the United States and are not actually naturalized or lawful permanent residents of the United States are liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies, he said. And so that directive gave Pam Bondi, as well as Kristi Noem, the authority to carry out these deportations. So also, you've got Senator Mike Rounds, who was on CNN State of the Union talking about this over the weekend. And Senator Mike Rounds, as all of this was going on, Rounds said of TDA, he said, I can tell you that clearly these individuals should never have been in the United States to begin with. And the question is, which laws are we going to use to get them back out? And whether or not the courts agree, that part will be determined by the courts. But in the meantime, I'm happy to see the president is following up with his promises that he is going to keep Americans safe. So this is Newsmax then also picked this story up. It was on, this was Senator Rounds on CNN State of the Union with Jake Tapper over the weekend. And Senator Rounds saying, he is glad that President Trump is moving forward to keep Americans safe. Now, Straight Arrow News is saying that this Judge Boasberg facing threats of impeachment after he placed a 14-day restraining order on the Trump administration and the administration invoking the Alien Enemies Act then. And I told you last week about that law is actually a couple of 100 years old. It was passed in 1798. It's a wartime authority that allows the president to detain or deport the natives and citizens of an enemy nation. It's been used 3 times in the past, each time during a major conflict. It's not been used in years, but it was used during the War of 1812. Most recently, it was used in World War II. And that law was played a role then as in the Japanese internment camps during World War II. That's a very big story this morning. And the administration, saying to the judge that they had Carolyn Levitt, who had responded from the White House as well, saying it was just too late. They were out of U.S. airspace and that they clearly had authority to do it. Brings up a lot of questions for me about these courts and the ability, interfering with the president as he's trying to take these efforts. Also, the president will be speaking tomorrow with Vladimir Putin. And he said he'll likely be visiting with him tomorrow. He said, we'll see if we have something to announce maybe by Tuesday, he said. So will there be something to announce? We'll have to see. The president said he thinks we're doing pretty well with Russia after a lot of work was done over the weekend. He said, we want to see if we can bring that war to an end. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. But I think we have a very good chance, the president said. We will see if we have something to announce maybe by Tuesday. So this was during a discussion with the reporters on Air Force One yesterday. And this came after Steve Witkoff told CNN that a conversation between the president and Vladimir Putin would likely take place this week. Witkoff said he had a positive and solution-based discussion with Putin in Moscow last week. And this was after American and Ukrainian officials agreed to a potential ceasefire. So it appears that is moving forward. So the president on True Social yesterday morning, he shared a photo. Okay? And in the photo, there are 3 photos. One of him as president, 2017 to 2021, it says underneath. And then of him, 2025 to the present on the right side. And in the middle is a photo of the auto pen doing the signature of Joe Biden. And it says 2021 to 2025. Joe Biden president in using that auto pen. And so this is making a number of headlines so again, these were 3 images side by side. His official portrait from his first term, a picture of Biden's auto pen, and then finally his official portrait for his second term. And then Trump, in another post, said the person who was the real president during the Biden years was the person who controlled the auto pen, he says. Also, the president on True Social yesterday afternoon said, as we talk about taking these Tren de Aragua members out of the country, the president said, these are the monsters sent into our country by crooked Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats. How dare they? Thank you to El Salvador and in particular their president for your understanding of this horrible situation, which was allowed to happen to the United States because of incompetent Democrat leadership. We will not forget. Then the president also made a comment yesterday on the weather, the tornadoes and the storms that have hit a number of states. And the president said, 36 innocent lives have been lost. And that number now is up to 40, unfortunately, up to 40. The president said the National Guard have been deployed to Arkansas. My administration is ready to assist state and local officials as they help their communities to try and recover from the damage. Please join Melania and me in praying for everyone impacted by these terrible storms. And then the president last night around 11:30 said the pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the Unselect Committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by auto pen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the Unselect Committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest level. Fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. That's the president, some of his comments on Truth Social. Also, there's polling out about Donald Trump and how Trump is doing. And the polling of Trump, I don't think, is the important polling that's out there. It's the same old thing. New York Post actually says president is tied for the highest approval he's ever had. More Americans say the U.S. is on the right track than in any time in 20 years. But even so, the survey found voters generally feel Trump is bringing the right kind of change on key issues. But the bad news is that Trump still has not won over a majority of Americans. 54% say they disapprove of his handling of the economy, number of other issues. And of course, that's what the legacy media is running with. Oh, it's terrible. It's, Trump is losing all of this. Again, I don't believe that Donald Trump's standing in the polls is all that important. What I find fascinating is that Democratic Party favorability has fallen to a historic low. This is according to a recent CNN poll. The Democrat Party's favorability ratings falling, they sit at 29%, which is a record low with CNN polling dating back to 1992. That is, so you've only got 29% of Americans who favor. That is a 20-point plunge from its ratings at the start of Joe Biden's presidency. Wow. So the Democrat Party hitting a record low. I don't know whether we're going to, I may have to talk about this in the fourth hour. Other big stories that we want to get to this morning, and we'll tell you've got a number of voters who are showing up in town halls worried about the cuts to Social Security. And Straight Arrow News got a little more unbiased story regarding this. Polling shows that a majority of Americans believe the U.S. is spending too little on Social Security. They oppose cuts to Social Security. Are you worried about Social Security? You got voters who have been flooding town halls in a number of states. It's a number of different states where you've got voters who have been showing up worried about these cuts to Social Security. So we're going to talk about that later this morning. I asked that question for those of you who follow me on Facebook, and I welcome your thoughts there this morning. Are you worried about Social Security, and especially among those of us who are older? I'm not of Social Security age yet. I'm nearly there. Within the next 5 years or so, I will be there. But so I would love to hear from you this morning. We'll talk about that. Also, the president announced he ordered nearly all 1,300 employees of Voice of America to be placed on leave. Now, these are the Voice of America, as well as other media. This applied also to Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Radio Free Asia, Middle East Broadcasting Networks. All of these are funded by the federal government. All of these media outlets funded by the federal government. Should the federal government be funding media outlets? We're going to talk about that also coming up this morning. Well, there's a piece of good news. You had 4 astronauts arriving at the International Space Station aboard a SpaceX capsule to replace that crew that's been there for 9 months. And so they arrived yesterday aboard the SpaceX Dragon capsule. So they docked in less than 48 hours after launching from Cape Canaveral. And the commander, Ann McLean, an Army colonel, former combat helicopter pilot, said she and her fellow astronauts had a great trip from the launch pad to the space station. She said, I cannot tell you the immense joy of our crew when we looked out the window and we saw the space station for the first time. So a lot of gratitude also coming from the astronauts who will be brought back home. They've been up there quite a bit longer than they expected. And that's a look at the big stories this morning. Thanks for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. And again, happy St. Patrick's Day. 626. Clear skies, 41. This hour of our show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
2. Kello, News Talk 1320, 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, the Give You More Tire and Automotive Store.
Bring charm from the outdoors into your home with Renewal by Andersen Picture and Combination Windows. Optimizing a beautiful view and light in the bedroom, kitchen, or living room from ABC Seamless of Sioux Falls. Call 605-646-2667 today.
Let's ABC Seamless.
Swenson Advisors is introducing Grain Insight, taking the guesswork out of grain marketing. Join us for a 30-minute presentation on March 24th or 25th at our Sioux Falls location. Call 605-335-5570. Seating is limited. Again, 605-335-5570. Grain Insight, because timing is everything.
First Premier Bank has deep roots in South Dakota. Our lenders have extensive experience in the industry and understand the area's ag economy. They also work to understand your needs and provide the right financial resources and local decision-making to help grow, protect, and transition your operation. It's how we've become one of the nation's strongest community banks. Learn more at firstpremier.com/ag. First Premier Bank, member FDIC.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down. Get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avastin-capsid pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
Much warmer this afternoon. Our high temperature at 72 degrees. Partly cloudy skies, west winds 15 to 30. Very high fire danger once again across the region. Low tonight 32. Tomorrow cooler with a northeast wind 20 to 35. High 53. There's a chance of snow in the region by Wednesday.
And in Sioux Falls at 629, clear skies and 41 currently at Kello. Joe Bowman is on duty in the Kello.com News Center this morning. Coming up, Joe will have details. It's good news. The infant that was abducted at gunpoint last week has been found unharmed. Also, Governor Larry Roden will be in Sioux Falls today to launch his Open for Opportunity tour. Also, the latest numbers on South Dakota's labor market have just been released. So Joe will have details on those stories and more coming up for you here in moments. Fox News Radio coming up next. And then we'll run down stories that are trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Still to come as the Greg Belfrage Show continues on Kello.
Fox News. President Trump's Trump says he'll speak to Russia's President Putin tomorrow about ceasefire talks with Ukraine.
We'll be talking about lead. We'll be talking about power plants. That's the big question.
The president tells reporters on Air Force One you have to speak to the lawyers about whether he's violated a court order preventing, for now, deportations under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act.
The Trump administration did not refuse to comply with a court order, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says, after the administration flew hundreds of suspected migrant gang members to El Salvador and Honduras. Leavitt says while the order from a federal district court judge had no lawful basis, it was issued after the migrants were already out of U.S. territory and airspace.
Fox's Jared Halpern in D.C. At least 40 storm deaths are reported in the South and Midwest. Hundreds of homes and businesses are destroyed. America's listening to Fox News.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. The infant that was abducted at gunpoint last week has been found unharmed. Friday afternoon, Sioux Falls police found 1-year-old Javian Bluebird in an apartment on South Summit Avenue. 2 people in the apartment were arrested, but the main suspect, Leilana Sitting Up, is still at large. Governor Larry Roden will be in Sioux Falls today to launch his Open for Opportunity tour. Roden will be visiting communities across South Dakota to learn their specific needs and work with local officials to find more economic development opportunities. The Sioux Falls Chamber event will be at the South Dakota Military Heritage Alliance this afternoon at 3. The latest numbers on South Dakota's labor market were just released. 8,600 jobs were added since January, with the construction and healthcare industries experiencing the highest growth. Unemployment is still holding steady at a very low 1.9%, well below the national rate of 4.1%. Amazon has announced significant changes to its Echo devices and Alexa service, which may raise concerns over privacy. Starting March 28th, Amazon will disable the Do Not Send voice recordings feature on Echo devices. This means all voice interactions will be processed in the cloud. This change supports the enhanced capabilities of Alexa Plus, Amazon's new AI-powered assistant, which relies on cloud processing for advanced features. Hey, are you wearing green? Yeah, today is St. Patrick's Day, a celebration of all things Irish. Wearing green on St. Paddy's Day is rooted in the color having become a symbol of Irish identity and resistance against British rule back in the 1700s. And in basketball yesterday, the Skyforce won their 8th straight game, beating the Iowa Wolves 121-101. The Timberwolves outscored the Utah Jazz 128-102, and the South Dakota State women's team earned a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. They tip off against Oklahoma State in the first round on Saturday. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Weather brought to you by Intech Cleaning and Restoration. If you need it clean, call the Intech team. IntechClean.com.
Much warmer today in the Sioux Falls area. High at 72 with a west wind at 15 to 30. For tonight, low temperature at 32. East winds 10 to 20. Temperatures tomorrow back to the low 50s and some clouds. Northeast winds 20 to 35. And on Wednesday, chance of snow with a high 42. From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Carstens.
When you need to know, depend on Kello. News Talk 1320 107.9 and Kello.com.
Next month, Apple Watch marks its 10th anniversary, but no one at Apple is celebrating. In 2015, it was a must-have. Even Rolex owners wore one. Today, those glory days are over, maybe for good. I'm Kim Commando for Oracle. Cut your current cloud bill in half. Move to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. See if your company qualifies. Visit oracle.com/Kim. In the last year, global sales for the Apple Watch have fallen by a whopping 20%. Daily users who've discarded their watch say they're tired of the constant texts and email, calls, voicemails, and reminders to stand up, walk around, and other messages vibrating on their wrists all day. Declining sales weren't helped by Apple's outright theft of the technology used to measure your body's oxygen levels. Apple was forced by the courts to remove that function altogether. For Apple, it's not too late, but the handwriting is on the wall. To bring sales back, it's time for a major new Apple Watch breakthrough. Always be tech ahead with my free newsletter by your side at getkim.com. Even if you think it's a bit overhyped, AI is suddenly everywhere, from self-driving cars to molecular medicine to business efficiency. If it's not in your industry yet, it's coming fast. But AI needs a lot of speed and computing power, So how do you compete without costs just spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. It's a blazing fast and secure platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, plus all of your AI and machine learning workloads. OCI costs 50% less for computing and 80% less for networking. Thousands of businesses have already upgraded. Oracle is offering to cut your current cloud bill in half if you move to OCI. Offer ends March 31st, 2025. See if your company qualifies for this special offer at oracle.com/Kim. That's oracle.com/Kim. Oracle.com/Kim. Oracle.com/Kim.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, with 2 locations to make sure you have the proper traction this winter.
Because of unpredictable weather, Lewis has extended their customer appreciation event. Through Monday, you can save 20% off everything at Lewis. Save $460 on Weber Spirit S315 gas grills. While they last, just $399. Plus, save an additional 20% off. Now extended through Monday. You can save 20% off your entire purchase at any Lewis. Some exclusions apply. See stores for details.
Lewis, your first stop. If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down. Get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pegol is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Things are just better when you switch to Cricket. The sun shines a little brighter. Happy music starts randomly playing. Best of all, you can get iPhone 13 for just $29.99 with the ultra bright super retina.
Hope you had a great weekend.
15 hours of video playback.
Went fast.
Cricket's super fast 5G network. See, isn't that better? Smile, you're on Cricket.
But it was restful.
Reported on $60 plan for service charge text to its sale. $25 activation fee. Terms and restrictions apply.
Always look forward to catching up on my sleep. Sounds stupid, but when you're getting up every weekday at 2:45, not having to get up that early is it's really nice. I enjoy that. So slept in really well this weekend. Feeling great. Hope you are too.
That's 800-296-1251. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details. On Kello Radio, you always get entertaining talk and news when it happens. And at Kello.com, there's even more, like local stories and podcasts that make life in South Dakota even better. So it's Kello Radio for what you need to know, and Kello.com for what you want to know even more. Kello.
.639, clear skies, and 41 currently at Kello. Good morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. This hour brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belf's News Gallery.
Well, more than 200 Tren de Aragua gang members were aboard a prison flight to El Salvador, and the president of El Salvador said yesterday, he confirmed this, and they were deported by the United States. This is a partnership now between, it's a prison partnership between the United States and El Salvador, And so their president said today the first 238 members of the Venezuelan criminal organization Tren de Aragua arrived in our country, he said. And he said they were immediately transferred to the terrorism confinement center for a period of 1 year, renewable, it says. So there were photos that were released, and you'll see those at a number of media outlets this morning, foxnews.com, as well as other places. You've got Venezuela then criticizing the deportation, Venezuela's government criticizing the United States for this. And Venezuela called on the international community and organizations like the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States to oppose what it perceives as a dangerous precedent for regional security and legal norms. Here's an idea. How about keeping your citizens in your own country? I mean, their law, rather than sending them in the United States to break laws. If they want to come to the United States, there's a process for doing that. We welcome folks to come into the United States. It's just incredible what we've seen. Well, the president signed an executive order that would reduce the size of 7 federal agencies, including the one that oversees Voice of America. It's called the U.S. Agency for Global Media. Other agencies include the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service. This gets better as we go here, doesn't it? The Institute of Museum and Library Services, and the Minority Business Development Center. We'll talk about that in more detail coming up later this morning. Also, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Friday that South Africa's ambassador to the United States is no longer welcome here, he said. So the ambassador had argued that the MAGA movement was fueling the growing demographic diversity within the United States through its crackdown on illegal immigration, DEI, equity programs. And so here's the ambassador being critical of the president for all of these things. And this was after the president had signed an executive order cutting aid to the South African government. And the president cited the targeting of, these are South Africa's, these are descendants of Dutch colonial settlers, so on. So anyway, Marco Rubio said South Africa's ambassador to the U.S. no longer welcome in our great country. He's a race-baiting politician who hates America and hates the president. We have nothing to discuss with him, so he is considered persona non grata, Rubio says. In other words, he's out of here. Okay, also, SpaceX capsule delivered 4 astronauts to the International Space Station early yesterday, and this will allow those 2 NASA astronauts, is it 2 or 3? Maybe 3. 2. Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams will be able to return home. They've been up there for 9 months. It was only supposed to be a week. They were up there for, they thought, a week, and it turned out to be 9 months. And so now the crew has arrived and they'll be brought home safely. One hopes, at least. Also, Pope Francis was photographed at the hospital for the first time since he was admitted last month for double pneumonia. So he celebrated Holy Mass Sunday morning in the chapel of the hospital in Rome where he's at. and they shared the first image of the Pope since his hospitalization. And a Vatican official also confirmed yesterday that his condition remains stable. Also, the man identified as a person of interest. Remember the case of this missing, the missing University of Pittsburgh student who disappeared while on vacation in the Dominican Republic? Well, the man who was with her has been identified as a person of interest in her case. And he is a tourist, apparently from Iowa, possibly the last person to see her alive. And this is important, according to reporting from NBC News. So his attorneys in an email to NBC News said that his passport was confiscated Friday as part of the ongoing investigation. He's permanently escorted by the police anywhere he goes. So they are looking at him as a person of interest. Sadly, at least 40 people have died after tornadoes ripped through a swath of the U.S. and the South. Missouri took the worst of it. Twisters began to spawn on Friday. At least 12 people have died in that state. You had really powerful winds in Texas and Kansas, whipping dust storms. So again, 40 people now at this point have been confirmed as dead as a result of the storms. Hopefully we don't see that number grow today. There's more information about Gene Hackman's dog. That the dog likely died of dehydration and starvation, according to authorities. This was released by the Santa Fe County Animal Control Agency. And they said the partial mummification of the animal could have obscured changes in organs, but there was no evidence of poisoning, infectious disease, or trauma. It also said the dog's stomach was empty. Only small amounts of hair and bile were discovered in the dog. So it's most likely that Gene Hackman's dog died from dehydration and starvation. That's been a big story. Keeps trending. I think folks have been pretty, just really, shocked at what happened there and how things transpired. Really, really, really difficult to see that. Also, Miley Cyrus may have to face the music. Federal judge appears likely to reject her bid to dismiss a copyright infringement suit that is aimed at her single Flowers. And she's accused of copying Bruno Mars' song, When I Was Your Man. So during a court hearing in Los Angeles, the judge repeatedly indicated that the plaintiff had the legal standing to proceed with the case against Miley Cyrus. Also, the NCAA March Madness brackets were revealed yesterday. So a lot of interest in that. So the Selection Sunday bracket predictions are all out there, and those are easy to find for those of you who are interested. While we're talking sports, Matt Rickman of Illinois made history. He is the first American to win the Los Angeles Marathon since 1994. He finished with a time of 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 56 seconds. So the marathon also saw Tanish Chibisa Tulu of Ethiopia. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. She's from Ethiopia, and she won the women's race. But Mac Rickman of Illinois winning the Los Angeles Marathon, first American to do so since 1994. Of course, today is St. Patrick's Day, so the Chicago River is once again glowing green as the city opens its annual St. Patrick's Day celebrations. They had folks lining the river and on bridges. Bridges were packed. Folks erupting as cheers then as you had boats that were spraying dye into the river, literally turning the river green. And that has become an annual tradition then. The dye is non-toxic. The river stays bright for several hours. And then even after a few days, you can still see some trace of color as the St. Patrick's celebrations continue in Chicago. Other stories trending this morning. A key leader of the ISIS terror group has been killed in a joint operation in Iraq. He was the deputy caliph for ISIS, one of the most dangerous terrorists in Iraq and the world, according to a statement by Iraq's prime minister. And he was killed in an airstrike, which was conducted by Iraqi national intelligence and U.S.-led coalition forces. Newsmax has agreed to pay $40 million to settle a defamation lawsuit that was filed by Smartmatic. Smartmatic had accused Newsmax of spreading false claims about rigging the 2020 presidential election. So the settlement was actually reached last September, includes a $40 million payment with $20 million already paid and the remainder due by July, along with an option to purchase stock in Newsmax. So Newsmax acknowledged that the court found the claims about Smartmatic manipulating the 2020 election were factually false. And so Smartmatic is still litigating against Fox News after their settlement with Dominion voting systems. Also, egg prices have continued to drop for a third consecutive week. Demand is declining. So the national average wholesale price of eggs has dropped for the third week in a row. Ag Secretary Rollins says price of a dozen eggs has dropped to $1.85 in about 13 days. So some are considering that news to be excellent. Sound like Egghead on the old Batman TV show. All right. Also, the FDA issued an advisory Friday warning consumers not to inhale nitrous oxide products from any size. Canisters, tanks, chargers, do not do it. The FDA said these products are marketed as both unflavored and flavored nitrous oxide canisters, sold as a food processing propellant for whipped cream. And they said intentional misuse or inhaling these contents can lead to serious adverse health effects, including death. Got a lot of people doing it, and they're being sold. You go into vape stores, and guess what they're selling? They're selling these flavored, unflavored nitrous oxide canisters. People are getting high on it. And federal government saying, stop it. Also, there's a story that the scientists at Cornell University, funded by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, state of New York, saying that raw milk can harbor the bird flu virus. So there's a new study. This new study has health officials concerned. They found that the bird flu virus is also stable and still infectious in cheese that has been made with raw milk, despite being aged. So if you've got cheese that was made with raw milk that could contain the bird flu, is what they're saying. And then finally, a former U.S. Representative, Nita Lowey, who was a long-serving New York Democrat, first woman to chair the powerful House Appropriations Committee. She has passed away at the age of 87. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Thank you so much, my friend, for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. And again, a happy St. Patrick's Day to you. This hour of our show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'll be back on YouTube at 9:30 for the 4th hour. I will see you then. Have a great Monday.